Hi everyone, welcome back to Izzy Medicine. Today we're kicking off a new series on one of the most dramatic, high-stakes emergencies you'll face, shock. In this series, we'll break it all down. What's really happening at the cellular level, how patients present, and the major types of shock, like hypovolemic, septic, cardiogenic, and neurogenic. And we'll break it down one by one. You'll learn how to recognize them, how to treat them, and how to keep your cool under pressure. So grab your coffee and your mental lactate meter, and let's jump into the science of shock, starting with what it really is. So what is shock? In simple terms, shock means inadequate tissue perfusion, when oxygen delivery to tissues fails to meet their metabolic demands. A common misconception is that shock always means low blood pressure, but that's not true. In the early stages of shock, the body's compensatory mechanisms can keep the pressure looking normal on the monitor, even though tissues are already being starved of oxygen. That's why shock is more than just a number. It's about what's really happening at the cellular level. So what is happening? Every cell in your body is constantly producing ATP in mitochondria. Almost all of it comes from aerobic metabolism of glucose, fats, or ketones. This process depends on oxygen, or as we call it, oxygen dependent. When oxygen delivery drops for any reason, the mitochondria can't do their normal job of making ATP through the aerobic metabolism process. So the cells switch to a backup plan, anaerobic metabolism, because they just need to keep going. But here's the catch. Anaerobic metabolism makes a byproduct called lactate. As lactate builds up in the blood, it makes the blood more acidic. This is lactic acidosis. That's why when we see high lactate levels in shock, it tells us that the tissues aren't getting enough oxygen and the cells are struggling to keep up. So shock isn't just low BP. It's failure of oxygen delivery with the downstream cellular injury as a result, rising lactate, and, if untreated, organ dysfunction and possibly death. This is why catching it early, before the whole system tips over, is so critical. So in simple terms, what maintains perfusion? You may remember this equation. Mean arterial pressure equals cardiac output times systemic vascular resistance. And cardiac output equals heart rate times stroke volume. So to maintain adequate perfusion pressure, you need enough cardiac output and enough systemic vascular resistance. Every type of shock disrupts one or more of these, and understanding which part is broken is the key to treating it right. So, what's next? Now you know what shock really is. We have to stick with this series, and we'll break down each type, hypovolemic, septic, cardiogenic, and neurogenic, and we'll do that one by one with all the physiology, clinical pearls, and algorithms you need to recognize and treat them fast. So join me on the next video, and let's keep saving lives. Thank you for joining me on this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.